Okay, we're on to the last section. So this is looking at equipment. For this one, I've got my miniature golf club back in. I've also got a beer in here as well because it's getting late. So hopefully we'll get through this and give you some good answers. First question. So this comes in. This is a really good question. I've had this a few times in my coaching. How do I get that rising ball flight that the pros get? How do I achieve that? It's quite simple. You don't want to. So I explain why it happens, and I explain why you don't want it to happen. So this rising ball flight, the ball starts low and then starts to go up and up and up, and it's to do with the amount of backspin that is on the golf ball. It's also to do with the velocity that it's hit, but mainly the more backspin you've got at a given velocity, the more it will start to slide up in the air. And this actually causes more drag and is a real big factor in terms of reducing your driving distance. So you'll see all the guys these days, especially with TrackMan and all of that knowledge, they're teeing it a lot higher and trying to launch the ball higher with less backspin. So if you really do want it, do anything that gives you more backspin. Hit down onto the golf ball, have more spin launch angle, all of those things. But actually what you're trying to do is minimize the backspin, and that's going to reduce the drag through the air and actually lead to longer drives. So yeah, really, if you haven't got it, great. Keep teeing the ball high. Keep trying to hit it at sort of a neutral angle and try and launch that ball with around 2,000 to 3,000 RPM of backspin, and that'd be ideal. Oh, great question here. So, single length irons, we all know what pro this is to do with. Are they easier to hit? So, I don't have a perfect answer for you, but there's a couple of things that I can certainly discuss here. First of all, most people tend to be more consistent with shorter irons. Reason for that is, well, it's a shorter club. It is just easier to control. As we get to the longer clubs, we tend to be less accurate with stabilising the end point, and we have more miss strikes. So yeah, if shorter irons, if you have everything the same length, it will certainly make the longer clubs easier to control. And it actually won't impact your distance that much. The majority of distance is to do with the loft on the club. So if you really wanted to change and have all your irons made the same length, then yeah, you could do it. You won't really lose that much distance, and you may find that you're a bit more consistent purely because you hit the thing out the centre. Your other option is stick with your clubs as they are and improve your swing, so you improve your centreness of strike and consistency. Okay, so next question, looking at Maltby irons and custom fit, are they a good answer? I've not tried Maltby irons, so I can't tell you go and buy these clubs. I'm not going to try and sell something which I've never used before. But in terms of custom fit, what I would say is it doesn't actually matter what brand you get. So if you've got a custom fit club that suits you, if it's a Callaway, Cobra, Maltby, it really doesn't matter. They're all going to be really useful for you. In terms of custom fitting, there's two different ways that you can go. You can go static or dynamic. Static means that we just look at your body. We take things such as wrist distance to floor, and we get you a set of clubs that suits your body. The other way is dynamic, and this means that we're going to watch you hit some golf shots. We're going to look at how your club interacts with the ground and how it's orientated when it hits the golf ball, and we're going to give you a club that's best suited for you there. Now, I'd say that if you're just starting golf, try and get something that is fitted for you statically well. So you really don't want to try and account for bad shots when you're a beginner. You're hoping that you get a set of golf clubs that suits you and you progress your game as you go through. If you've been playing years and years and you don't want to change your swing, there is nothing wrong with having clubs change slightly to try and reduce a fade or a hook or something like that. I used to have my irons just changed by 1 degree flatter, just to try and get my impact better and try and reduce my hooks and pulls with those irons. So yeah, feel free to have decide on that one. But it doesn't really matter what make, just take that into account. And with that, think about the ball flight. So do you want to hit a certain type of ball flight? It's fine if you want to try and change your golf clubs to encourage a bit of ball flight. It's not going to make you the world's best player, but it may help. Okay, big swig of beer before this one. So I'm not going to read this whole question, but it's obviously quite a complicated one. I had to do a bit of digging. So what on earth is alpha, beta, gamma torques on the club shafts? How do they really impact our sort of accuracy and distance? So I did a bit of digging here, and I got back to an article in Golf Digest, which I put a link to below. Now, this article is actually based on a bit of research, and the Golf Digest article is awful. It makes it so complicated. So I had to go back to the original bit of research and try and find out what was going on. And really what the research suggested is that the golf club itself experiences quite a lot of torque through the golf swing. So if we've got a golf club here, we could apply a force sort of directly up or a force to the side, and that's going to make it move. We've actually got the golf club as a centre of gravity, somewhere here, and if I'm starting to apply a force here, it's going to start to rotate around that centre of gravity. Now we call that a torque, a twisting force, and it also has it in a few different directions. So the first part of the question is, well, what's more important, alpha, beta or gamma torque? If you look at the original research, and I've got a link below for you, they're all important. They actually occur at different points during the swing. So to start off with, the shaft's loaded in one way. As you come further down, it's loaded at a different way. So that's sort of the first part of the question. What's ideal? What's ideal for distance? So again, I've got a figure below, and I think this is one of the most interesting points about the article. What it suggests is that we're not swinging the most efficient way. So for that, they've got a scratch golfer, and they've mapped their downswing. And what they said is, if the club's a long way away and we're applying a force here, we're actually mechanically disadvantaged to pull it down, and we could actually generate a lot more force and torque on the golf club if it was closer to our body. So if it was here, we've got a shorter lever and we could apply more force to try and get this golf club to accelerate. So that's probably one of the most interesting points. The thing is, why doesn't anyone do this? We see a few golfers, I think Sergio Garcia is one, where his downswing is very narrow, and that is certainly a way to try and make the most of the force that you're generating. The reason we probably don't do this is it's quite complicated. If we're going to try and do it by shortening our arms towards our body, we've suddenly got some shoulder, elbow flexion, which we then need to correct as we get into the golf ball. So as much as we could say that mechanically this is the optimum thing that we could do, I don't think it's a great idea for us. We're human beings, we're not robots. So that's my take on that. Hopefully that's been useful. I enjoyed researching it, so thanks for sending that one in, and get in touch if you've got any other questions around that. Okay, to finish up, I've got some bad news. I couldn't quite find the answer to this one. So how many millimeters do these sort of slider clubs change the centre of gravity? So we've got a centre of gravity orientated within the club head, and a few of these golf clubs, they've got a weight that you can move along, and we can change the centre of gravity and therefore affect how the club face rotates. I have got some information though. What I would say is, when you look at the research from TrackMan, golf pros tend to hit the thing straight out the centre of the golf club every single time. So their transfer of entry is optimal. And we call this a smash factor. So they have a smash factor of 1.5, which is as high as it can go. Most amateur players do not hit the centre of the golf club. They actually have a smash factor of 1.42. So if you're hitting off centre, you're then actually starting to waste a lot of the energy, and it doesn't get transferred into the golf ball because the club twists as it hits. So what I can say on this question is, if you hit the thing straight out the centre of the golf club every time, this change of weight on the golf club will have an impact on your ball flight. It really will be something that you'll be able to notice. For most amateurs though, if you're mishitting it, if you're hitting it towards the toe, heel, frequently, it's probably not going to make a big difference. Your better bang for your buck is working out how to hit it more out the centre than worrying about where the slider is. It will have a negligible effect, but I would say for these bits of technology, they're great. They do make a difference when you hit it out of the centre. For all amateurs, don't worry so much about where your weighter is in the club. Get good at hitting the ball out of the centre of the club face, and that will help. Hopefully that's been useful for you guys. I've really enjoyed doing this, so thank you so much for sending in the questions. I hope it's helpful, and yeah, stay in touch.